Benjamin Impossible. Chapter 30. The Spider's Web. Benjamin and Lemon-Time floated through the hatch and looked around. They found themselves in a spacious living room. Glockenspiel had gutted the front of the submarine and turned the forward compartment into his living quarters. Couches and furniture sprawled about the place, and on the walls hung rare paintings. The entire far wall was composed of glass, and they could see Earth in the distance. A shiny humanoid robot sat at a dinner table in the middle of this room, beckoning them closer.
May I present Benjamin Impossible and Captain Lemon-Time?
The two jumped in surprise. Behind them stood the Major Domo robot from Fort Jefferson. The courtesy robot still sported its frilly outfit, but its white face paint looked scuffed from their earlier fight. Someone had retrieved the powdered wig and glued it back on, but the hairpiece sat askew upon the automaton's head. "Not this again," Benjamin complained, holding up his metal club. "Let me show you my calling card." "Oops," said the robot sitting at the table. "I forgot to turn that fellow off. Just ignore that robot and join me for dinner." Benjamin and Lemon-Time turned back to the table and approached the waiting figure. The carpet must have had metal underneath, for the electromagnets in their boots were able to stick and allowed them to walk normally. The robot, relaxing at the table, looked extremely lifelike, with articulated joints and metallic panels in the face that conveyed expression. Its arms bulged with muscle wire, and the skeletal arms moved with dexterity. The robot looked creepy, especially with its stick-on fake mustache. "Welcome, boys. What took you so long?" Glockenspiel said.
"I knew it," Lemon-Time exclaimed. "Glockenspiel is a robot, didn't I tell you?"
Benjamin nodded, glancing at the powerful robot before them, then scanning the room for threats. "Maybe he is. Or maybe he's just hiding somewhere, controlling this machine via remote control like a coward." Benjamin noticed several other robots scattered about the chamber. The flesh-headed aristocrat robot sat in the corner playing classical music on a grand piano, its synthetic face still mangled from Benjamin's club. The eye patch must have fallen off, as its dislocated eye hung from its socket and floated around disturbingly in the low gravity as it rocked back and forth. "No, the robot replied. "I'm the real Glockenspiel, the head honcho, the big boss, the real McCoy." The robot waved his hands in front of him, indicating the empty plates, silverware, and other dining accoutrements. "I'm afraid you caught me at dinner. I have no traditional fare to offer. Unless you want some cookies?" Benjamin glared at Dr. Glockenspiel across the dishes. If this was the real Glockenspiel, and not another remote-controlled avatar, then this was their first time meeting the puppet master in person. "Give me back my brother, or I'm going to knock your block off." The robotic doctor looked back at them critically, metal fingers steepled before him. "Will you walk into my parlor?" said the spider to the fly. Benjamin scoffed, reaching down for his gas blaster. "You need to work on your lines, dude. Try coming up with something original next time." Glockenspiel grinned, stroking his fake mustache. "You don't like 19th century poetry? Then perhaps something more modern." The robot leaned forward and with a baritone voice called out, "Portas berjablu diai rekaku ne." "What the heck did he just say?" Lemon-Time asked. An icy chill ran through Benjamin's body. "He's speaking Klingon, Captain. That roughly translates to, when cold revenge is served, the dish is always very, very good." Lemon-Time looked confused. "Klingon? He speaks a made-up language from Star Trek?" Benjamin brought up his blaster and froze. "Lemon-Time!" Benjamin yelled. "Shoot him, now!" "I can't," the captain said with surprise. "My spacesuit is frozen." Glockenspiel smiled. "I'm afraid it is too late for that, boys. You should have fired when you had a chance." Lemon-Time struggled. "What's going on? Why can't I move my arms?" Benjamin grimaced. "He's taken control of the computers that run our spacesuits." "But how?" Benjamin's head reeled at the implications, and he tried to put the pieces of this puzzle together in his mind. "Charlie and I programmed the spacesuits using a programming language based on the Klingon language. Glockenspiel must have learned Klingon to hack into our spacesuits." Lemon-Time struggled to swing his club, but it didn't budge. "Why did you have to use Klingon?" "It was a security feature. There are only 30 people in the world who can speak Klingon fluently, and Charlie and I are the only ones who can program in it. Glockenspiel held up a finger. Make that 31 people. I taught myself the programming language last year. Lemon-Time swallowed. You hacked into our spacesuits and now you control our movements? Obviously. I control the software that runs your spacesuit's powered muscle. The mechanical servos that give you great strength are now your weakness, for they are under my control. The evil doctor waved at the table before him. Gentlemen, please sit down. I rarely receive visitors up here in space, and you might as well relax while I bring you up to speed. Benjamin and Lemon-Time gasped as the servos and muscle wire in their spacesuits activated and forced them to sit down at the table across from the mad robot. It felt as if they were possessed. They had no control over their bodies. Benjamin gritted his teeth. How did you get through the suit's wireless security systems? Oh, that was easy, Glockenspiel said. I programmed in a backdoor security flaw months ago. Months ago? Benjamin exclaimed. How did you know that we'd be here today? I didn't, Glockenspiel answered honestly. It's an odd coincidence. Would you like to hear the story? Benjamin shrugged. I don't think we have a choice. Last summer, I decided I needed hyperhelium to fly my submarine. I read about NASA's Orion shuttle program and decided to steal the gas from their rocket. So, one evening, I hacked into NASA's computer systems and snooped around looking for opportunities. That couldn't have been too tough, Benjamin said. Their internet security sucks. Indeed. Glockenspiel dabbed at an imaginary breadcrumb with a napkin. Anyway, I was searching through the scientists' emails trying to locate the hyperhelium shipment your father was planning to deliver. Much to my delight, I stumbled upon several of NASA's prototype designs. One of them was your spacesuit design. Glockenspiel took a sip of imaginary water and continued speaking. All the design specifications were there, so I downloaded the entire project to study. You've made a brilliant update to NASA's spacesuit program, by the way. Your hard suits remind me of the one-man submersibles I've used in the past for underwater salvage. The doctor grinned at Benjamin. The addition of servo-controlled joints was the real genius. Your mechanized spacesuits have electronic musculature similar to my own robotic creations, and that gave me an audacious idea. Maybe I could take control of your spacesuits and use them to steal the hyperhelium. I spent several months learning to program in Klingon, and I uploaded a backdoor security breach into your spacesuit's operating system. When NASA launched their first hyperhelium rocket, I planned to remotely hijack the astronauts' bodies and force them to crash land out in the ocean. Benjamin leaned forward, struggling against the suit that trapped him. And then, you would steal the rocket's entire supply of hyperhelium? With a submarine, you could drain the hyperhelium, destroy the evidence, and disappear underwater. Nobody would know what happened and assume the rocket crashed from equipment failure. Glockenspiel smiled. Exactly. Everything was on schedule until NASA chickened out and decided to use their old spacesuits for the Orion mission. They did? Benjamin asked, surprised. I thought they were going to use my suit design for the launch. Glockenspiel shook his head. No, they were having problems with the urine disposal vacuum, so they decided to use the older suits one more time. This, of course, completely ruined my timetable. Problems with the urine disposal vacuum? Lemon-Time asked. Glockenspiel ignored him. So I had to steal the hyperhelium gas the old-fashioned way. My robots broke into the vehicle assembly building and walked out into the Atlantic carrying the hyperhelium tanks. Unfortunately, the robbery left evidence. That is how your family became personally involved in my machinations. Glockenspiel took a bite of invisible food and chewed thoughtfully. When I discovered that your airship was nearby, I couldn't resist stealing your baby brother as well. I'm glad I did. For now, I have a valuable asset and the hyperhelium generator. You suck, dude, said Benjamin. The doctor smiled and toyed with a knife on the table. I am pleased that you came here and allowed me to activate that Klingon security flaw. I was afraid that I had wasted valuable time learning to program in that ridiculous language. Benjamin shook his head in confusion. If you already hijacked our spacesuits, why didn't you take control of our suits during the fight at Fort Jefferson? Glockenspiel leaned backward. I didn't have time to activate the security breach. The backdoor program I wrote requires me to transmit an activation code to your helmet's radio receiver. You two were using a different frequency than NASA normally uses, and it's taken me time to find that frequency. That's what I've been doing this whole time as you've wandered about my submarine. And now what? Benjamin spat. You've got us trapped. So what nefarious scheme are you planning? Glockenspiel held his hands out. You already know my plan. It is world domination. I hold the high ground and can drop a shark torpedo or a meteor on anyone who displeases me. I control the hyperhelium, and Earth won't be capable of mounting a credible retaliation against my position for years. By then, I will have fortified my control of space, and my robotic drones will be unstoppable. As for Master Charles, he is in good health. He is an accomplished programmer, and I can use his talents to build my robotic army. The child has been more resistant to brainwashing techniques than I would have believed. Perhaps seeing your fate will break his spirit and make him more amenable to my demands. The hatch behind them opened. Neither Benjamin nor Lemontime could move their heads to see the newcomer, but the Major Domo robot came into view, pushing a cart. A jar sat on top of the cart, and inside they could see baby Charlie floating inside, eating an Oreo cookie. Charlie noticed them and smiled, waving at his big brother. The Major Domo robot, at Glockenspiel's command, walked over and opened the faceplates on their spacesuit helmets. Benjamin breathed in fresh air, which tasted odd after being trapped inside their suits for so many hours. Lemontime was especially relieved as he had been smelling urine for the past hour. Glockenspiel sniffed disdainfully. Did someone use the bathroom? I know it's not that baby. His jar is airtight. Benjamin glanced over at the captain. It was Captain Lemontime. He peed his pants again. In fact, he kind of smells like you look. Watch your manners, young man, Glockenspiel said as he dabbed a napkin on his mustache, then folded it away. Your failed rescue attempt has disturbed my meal, and I am in no mood for games. Benjamin didn't flinch. His eyes locked on the robot sitting before him. Disturbed your meal? You're the one playing games. I know you don't eat food anymore. We all know you're a stinking cyborg. Glockenspiel smiled and pushed himself back from the table. Think you figured it out, do you? Well, I wasn't exactly keeping that bit of trivia a secret. The evil doctor stood and walked around the table, showing off his metal body. The robotic form was designed to look like a formal military uniform with small golden accents painted on that gave the illusion of buttons and medals. An appropriate uniform for the New World Commander, don't you think? You look like a robotic snake, Benjamin said. Do you think so? Glockenspiel asked with a smile. Lemontime gawked. Wait, is Glockenspiel a robot or not? Benjamin shook his head. No, he's a cyborg, part human and part robot. The evil doctor was injured years ago. Evidently, the reports of his bodily injuries were underestimated. Only his brain remains, and he has found a way to keep that brain alive with a neural interface to control his robotic body. Glockenspiel grinned. Clever boy. A reasonable hypothesis. But as usual, you've missed the mark again. You've reached the end of Chapter 30. Please consider liking this video or maybe leave a comment. Then proceed to Chapter 31, A Brainy Twist.